I'm going live. Greetings and welcome to another edition of the Red Pill Diaries. I'm your host, Rashid, and I'd like to thank you for giving me your time today. You are now part of the most powerful, most informative, most educational platform on YouTube, bar none, and on social media, bar none. This is your platform for empowerment, education, and edification. This is the Red Pill Diaries, and I am Rashid. Hey, check this out. Tomorrow morning around 10 Central, 11 Eastern Time, we're having Scott Ritter on the platform to talk about the YouTube censorship and a host of other issues. So please join us on that show and hit the like button today and hit the like button on the show tomorrow. Join us, invite a friend, invite a family member. Hey, as a matter of fact, invite your whole family and invite all your friends, okay? So that we can build on this platform and build the truth, all right? So let's go forward today. Today's show is titled, When Worlds Collide, It's a Fight for Survival. Now, why did I name the show that? And what's the meaning behind the name of the show? Well, right now we're watching a Western so-called rules-based order world, fighting for its survival. It is doing any and everything that it possibly can think about to try to maintain the status quo of Western or U.S. supremacy and Western hegemony. Because in this Western hegemony, America must be the supreme one. She allows no equals, no close to being an equal. You have to be a junior partner or you have to be a minion, right? Excuse me. And what we're seeing on the flip side is a movement by nations that have been sanctioned, that have been shunned, that have been demonized, that has been violated and continues to be violated economically, politically, militarily by the American-led, Western-dominated global architecture. So we see two worlds on the scene. We see one that has been present for hundreds of years based on the European, Western, US dominated, UK dominated system. And we're seeing a world which is more representative of the population of the planet Earth coming together, trying to hash out a better, more equal, more fair, and more just international order. So when you have two worlds, science tells us this, that two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. That is scientific. Two objects cannot occupy the same space at the same time. So if you have one that is dominated in everything technologically, politically, culturally, and this is what they have been accustomed to. And then you have a new up and coming that is challenging them culturally, because in reality, the culture of the Eastern Bloc supersedes and far outstrips that of the Western Bloc. Then you see they're challenging them economically. Not only can we out manufacture you now, but we can out import you, out export you. We can out lend you. We can out manufacture you. Then you have them militarily. We are no longer subjugated to the threats that you impose upon other people. We now have a military that can, or we have militaries that collectively can outstrip the U.S. dominated NATO, which is the North Atlantic Terrorist Organization, model of things. China alone has the military capability now to, if not defeat, can rebuff and stand tall against America and the host of her NATO allies. Russia has the military capability to not only rebuff, but to beat back, beat down, and dominate America and NATO, as we see clear on the Ukrainian battlefield. We see it right now. You can't say it's not true, because we see it right now with our own eyes on the Ukrainian battlefield. So, again, we have an apt title for the show because of what is going down. And I see people in the chat already. And I'll get to your your comments in the chat, okay? But we have a world now that is crashing and burning, and another world that is merging in on the world that is crashing and burning. Now, I often give this analogy when concerning what is going on. When you have ruled without restrictions and you have dominated every area of man, animal, and life on the planet, and now you see a challenge to that authority, to that rule, to that position, because you've become so accustomed to not only making policy, but forcing policy down the throat and stomach of everybody else. This is an unpalatable situation for you now that you see people who are now on a level of their military peer or near peers to you. Economically, they have surpassed you, right? And technologically, they have caught up to you, or they have surpassed you in strategic and key areas. When you have dominated for so long and you see that your domination is coming to an end, you do and try any and everything to maintain your kingdom, because this is pretty much what it is. America, the UK, and Europe believes that the world is their kingdom. If they listen, they act as if they're the kings of the globe. If you don't agree with them, they sanction you. It is almost like a child going into a tirade or a fit when they don't get their way. I want you to just think about this for a minute. For the parents out here, think about this for a minute. America has a beef with Russia, a manufactured beef with Russia that she manufactured, right? The UK alone, when I say America, I'm talking about America and the UK, because these two are one and the same. These two are the daughters of Babylon, okay? So if I say UK, I'm talking about America too. When I say America, I'm talking about the UK too. Their policies are interchangeable. If you look at the poverty that is building in the UK and look at the poverty that's building in the United States, look at the uproar of injustice in the UK and look at it in the United States. Look at the growing homelessness in the United States and look at it in the UK. Look at the medical field protesting against the policies that are being imposed upon them in the UK and look at it in the United States. Mirror me back. That's all they're doing. Mirror me back. These two are one and the same. The UK has the institutions that govern the gold markets. And as Gregory Manarino says, it doesn't matter about anything else. He who prints the money, he who controls the money, controls the world. Okay? So these two are one and the same. That is why you see them in every military escapade together. And sometimes you see the UK more fervent in waging war than the United States, with a military of less than 100,000 people. And they are sometimes more adamant and more fervent about going on escapades around the globe. Why is that? Because these two nations are one and the same. All right. Now, again, we see a fight for survival. And I haven't lost my train of thought. I'm going back to this analogy about a child. When you have children in the house, and you've had this one child for the longest, and you welcome a new one on the stage, being born, the one child that has been accustomed to all the attention and all of the toys and all of the gifts and everything. When that a lot of times when the new child comes on the scene, jealousy is born, because now they have to share the spotlight, they have to share the attention, share the gifts, share the toys, share everything, and this is something that the firstborn or the oldest was not accustomed to, and sometimes they lash out, right? They lash out. Sometimes they do things that is outside of their character, and then sometimes the situation just brings out in their character that you were not accustomed to. Well, we look at this with the United States. Let's see if what I'm saying is the truth. The United States has a manufactured beef with Russia, manufactured by the United States and the UK, right? Now, they flipped the script because, of course, in this rules-based dominated world order, we live in bizarro world where up is down is up, in is out is in, and circle is square, right? So Russia is the aggressor, even though the United States and the UK have implemented policies that are a detriment to the national security of the Russian Federation on its border. Not on the United States borders, not on the UK's border, but on Russia's borders. The United States and the UK continue to fly warplanes on Russia's borders, right? They continue to sail warships through waters close to Russia's zone of influence, Russia's territorial waters, right? They continue to deploy troops, as they say, listen, and they make this more palatable to you through the news. They say, Russia has been aggressive on NATO's eastern flank. What is NATO's eastern flank? Because most people don't stop to think about what is NATO's eastern flank. It used to be Russia's western flank. Do you understand this? Bizarro world. Russia is flying warplanes up against NATO's eastern flank. Well, what is NATO's eastern flank? It is the former Soviet republics, which used to be Russia's western flank. But in bizarro world, and because of the propaganda outlets that have dominated the world that is exclusive to the West, you would think that Russia is the aggressor. Well, is Russia pumping Ukraine with weapons? Of course they are now, because they're in a military operation. But why? As a response to NATO bases, NATO training, NATO funding, NATO embedding with Ukrainian troops, NATO bribing Ukrainian government officials, and NATO supporting, arming, training, and funding Nazis in Ukraine. But Russia is the aggressor in bizarro world. See, you understand what I'm saying? Bizarre. Now, I want you to think about this. Do you think that America, for 1 second, would allow Russia to train the cartels, the drug cartels that run through Latin America up to the, now, mind you, some of these are creations of the United States. Now, I want you to understand this, the creation of Britain too, to keep Latin America off balance, so that the UK can continue to occupy the Mount Venus Islands, and for the United States to continue to run its near abroad. But just for talk's sake right now, do you believe that the United States would allow Russia to openly go into Mexico, right, and say Mexico has decided to join the Shanghai Cooperation Organization? As a matter of fact, when Mexico announced that they were seeking to join the BRICS, the United States talked about invading Mexico. Did you understand what I said? Because this didn't make the news. Lindsey Graham said we should invade Mexico. Lindsey Graham said that. And then the president of Mexico for a while stood firm, and then all of a sudden, after these covert trips by top intelligence people in the United States, Mexico changed its tune and said we don't seek to join the BRICS. We seek to submit the North American Union and to fashion out a trade agreement between Canada, the United States, and Mexico, right? But no, not a whimper of this is in the news. But what if Russia would have jumped on that, seeking the BRICS, and then positioned so-called military advisors in Mexico? What if they would have set up biolabs on the Texas border? What if they would have supplied Mexico with S-400s, Su-35s, Mi-9 helicopters, those alligator attack copters, right? And Iskanders? Would this be acceptable to America? And would Russia be considered belligerent and aggressive? And if this is the case, if they would have viewed, and the world would view Russia as being belligerent, aggressive, and stoking tensions on the North American continent, then why the hell is that not the same reasoning when dealing with the UK, the US, NATO on Russia's near abroad? I'm asking. Why? Because of the exceptional mind. I am the king and you are the subject. Do as I say, not as I do. Because if you do as I do, I will take you as a threat and I will prosecute and persecute a war against you because this is unacceptable. Unacceptable. See, you see, worlds are colliding. Truth is colliding with falsehood. A new, more fair, more just world that is being fashioned is colliding with a Western-centered, Western-dominated, parasitic order that is crashing and burning under the weight of his own corruption, lies, and ineptitude, I might add. Okay? I might add that to it. Now, think about this. Let me throw this in while we're still talking on this subject, and I'll be in the chat in just a second. Just think about this. In the 50s, the United States, 50s and 60s era, the United States, 50s, 60s, they were positioning themselves to dominate the world regardless of the Soviet Union, right? Now, they almost went to nuclear war because, according to Western propaganda, the Soviets had positioned nuclear-tipped missiles in Cuba. I want you to understand this, the significance of this, okay? Cuba lies some 100 and between, well, some people say 95, but the latest thing I think it says 105 or 110 miles away from the southernmost tip of Florida. So there's 100 miles in between Cuba, 100 plus miles in between Cuba's northern tip and the United States southern tip. Now, according to international law, you have a 12-mile border at sea, right? So if you add in the United States and Cuba's territorial waters, that's 24 miles, right? So that still leaves us with roughly 80 miles in between the sovereign waters of the United States and the sovereign waters of Cuba. Now, that is considered to be what? International waters. Isn't that what America says she's over in the South China Sea for? To secure freedom of navigation in international waters? Is that not right? So now listen. We nearly went to nuclear war because the United States stated that Cuba had allowed the Soviets to pre-position and station nuclear-armed, nuclear-tipped missiles in the Cuba. And this was an unacceptable, listen to me good. Let me go here real quick because I want you to understand exactly what I'm saying here, okay? All right. They said that this was an unacceptable national security threat. This is the United States. And they were about to take the entire world to nuclear war at the time, okay? The United States. Not acknowledging publicly that Russia's move was a response to the United States deploying the, what is it, Persings? I think that's what it was. Nuclear tipped missiles into Turkey. And at the time, the Soviet border extended down there. I want you to think about this. In the Western media, the Western historians had it fashioned as if Russia was, or the Soviet Union was the aggressor in this manner. Because now I want you to think about today. The technology, the propaganda is on a whole nother level, a whole nother scale than it was back then when they had the world believe that it was the Soviets that decided to, out of the blue, to deploy nuclear-armed missiles to Cuba, which is Cuba's sovereign right, I might add. Remember all this talk today about sovereignty of Ukraine, and Ukraine should have NATO if they want them in there? Ukraine should be allowed to have anybody in there because they're a sovereign territory. Well, what about Cuba? I'm asking you this. So Cuba is not a sovereign country? It doesn't enjoy the sovereignty and the rights of a sovereign and independent nation either? Oh, these only apply to nations that America wants to dominate, can dominate, or has an interest in trying to use to weaken Pakistan, India, China, Russia, South Africa, the global South, and BRIC nations. Again, for those of you who are joining us now, please join us in the morning at 10 a.m. Central, 11 Eastern. We'll have Scott Ritter, uncensored, on the show, and he'll be talking about the censorship that took place. He'll be talking about a whole host of other issues on this platform. So join us. All right. So now remember that the United States, John Kennedy, the military apparatus said that this was an unacceptable threat to the United States national security. Now, according to the dictionary, the word unacceptable is an adjective. It means not satisfactory or allowable. So stop right there before we go to any more. It's not allowable. So how is it not allowable for the Soviet Union to deploy weapons of mass destruction on the territory of an independent sovereign nation, but it is acceptable for the United States to do so in Europe, in territory that was once part of the former Soviet Union? Exceptional. Exceptional. So this says not satisfactory or allowable. It says unacceptable behavior, similar, intolerable, insufferable, unsatisfactory, impermissible, inadmissible. So on the one hand, it is permitted because America, the UK, and NATO does it. But if anybody else does it, it is insufferable, intolerable, unsatisfactory, impermissible, inadmissible, and unallowable. The only way that you can come to that conclusion is if you believe that you're exceptional and everybody else is beneath you, right? Only thing that matters is my sovereignty. Only thing that matters is my territorial integrity. To hell with Somalia. To hell with Sudan. To hell with Mali. That's what you're saying. These are beneath me. That's what you're saying. To hell with Ukraine, because remember, Ukraine is in this condition because of US and UK policies. To hell with China and Taiwan. That's what you're saying. There was something that my sister used to say, you listen to their words, but watch their actions. They can talk about freedom, democracy, sovereignty, and human rights. But if you watch the policies and the policy directives, they violate every letter of every spirit to those words they claim to uphold. Listen to the words, but watch the actions. And that's what we're doing, okay? Let me go to the chat real quick. Hold on, let's see if it'll allow me in the chat. Let's see, okay. Astral Atmosphere, shout out. No Way Out, shout out. Real Truth Talk, shout out. So let's see. I'm doing pretty good, thank you. I hope everybody in the chat is doing good. I hope that everybody who's viewing this and who will view this, I hope that all of you are doing good, and I hope that you have all got up this morning and thank God for blessing you with another day, one that you've never seen before, and one which you will never see again. This is what I'm talking about. Be thankful and be grateful for the time and for the blessings that God bestow upon you. All right? Now, let's see. Now, No Way Out says, matter of fact, let me go into this chat because it'll allow me to highlight it. And I'm scrolling through. I'm just dabbing through, okay? So don't think harsh of me if I don't get to you at this moment. But let's see. Where was it? Oh, here it is. I'll highlight it right here. No Way Out says 195 countries in this world, 88 of them are under illegal U.S. sanctions and 62 are U.S. puppets. Now that says something, huh? Now, if let's just take your numbers, No Way Out. If this is the case, and we're not going to even question it, we're just going to give it the benefit of the doubt. If this is the case, then the only rational thinking is that America believes that she's exceptional, that she's better than everybody. And this goes back to the point that I was trying to make by giving you these examples. Okay? Listen, when you've been in a position of authority for so long, and your authority is waning and coming to an end, your influence is waning and coming to an end, and they're younger, more robust, more powerful and agile people coming up. What you do, you marvel in the glory of what you used to be, the things that you used to can do, and the things that you used to have, right? But there are more testosterone filled people coming up behind you, and now you're saying, well, if I did this back then and I could do this, then they could not beat me. Those are the minds of boxers, martial artists, and all of this stuff, because they are living in past glory and not allowing the future to come in. And some people will stand in the way of the progress of the future because they are so addicted to the limelight, the adulation, the applause. That's America, that's the UK, that's the Western world. They are so addicted to dictating the terms to each and every person on the planet Earth that they are now standing in the way of progress. How the hell can you not stand in the way of progress when you are sanctioning the largest manufacturer in the world? How can you not stand in front of progress when you're trying to limit the chips, the advanced chip technology for the largest manufacturer, the largest importer, and the largest exporter in the world? How is it not standing in the way of progress when you are demonizing, vilifying, and then provoking nations around the world? How is it not standing in the way of progress when you are talking about spending? Now, mind you, 20 billion is what it'll take to alleviate homelessness in America. About 10 or 15 billion is what it'll take to alleviate homelessness in Europe. Okay. Now, you're talking about reinvesting $10 to $15 trillion to upgrade your nuclear triad. How is that not standing in the way of progress? And what do you need to upgrade it for when you keep talking about a fairer, just, better world? Because if you continue to upgrade and you continue to build these, eventually, guess what happens? You'll use them. And you'll stunt or destroy the growth of civilization. Right? This is not the case. What I'm trying to do is force you all to use sound judgment, reasoning. Forget the propaganda, because you got a lot of alternative sites that are just out there. They're not really against the government. They use you for clickbait and stuff like that. And you have a lot of mainstream media sites that They are the barrier between reality and what the government wants you to have. So they'll acknowledge a little reality wrapped in a whole bunch of fiction. That's to keep your attention, because they know most people are drawn to truth. So you spot a little truth and you go to it, and then they'll wrap it in a lot of fiction. That is to confuse you, to frustrate you, and then subjugate you, right? Now, I do want to say this, though. This has nothing to do with this, but I should have said this at the beginning of the show. On Patreon, please, if you feel free to go join the Patreon. It's Red Pill. It's patreon.com/the Red Pill Diaries, all one word. Excuse me. A few days ago, I did 2 articles talking about some information that I had received. And it was talking about the Patriot air defense systems that are in Ukraine, the weapons depots that were in Ukraine, hint, hint, that were in Ukraine, the military leadership in Ukraine and what they had to say about what was really going on in Ukraine, right? 27 hours before anybody said anything about it, it was on the Patreon. Some of your favorite and largest channels then talked about it 27 hours later. And I was sitting, I was like, no way. I'm listening to, and I'm like, can I get a shout out or something? Because, I mean, listen, I don't, I'm not here to get credit for anything, but listen to me for real. The people who discussed this, they had to read the article, because not everything that they discussed was in the article and in detail. Seriously. Not one mention. I told you, I'm ostracized. I'm ostracized, but it's all good. I had to say that because somebody had told me, hey, Jack, you need to check this out. Hey, I read your article. I'm looking at the emails. You need to check this out. So I went, and my wife and I, first my daughter and I watched it, and I was like, no flipping way. And there's no way. So I told my daughter, I said, read the articles that I put out yesterday. And my daughter read them. And I said, now let's go back to the last 15 minutes of the program that we were watching, the last 20 some minutes. And my daughter was like, no way, Dad. No flipping way. So my wife got home, and I told my wife, I said, it's something you got to see. So I said, read these 2 articles from Patreon. And then I flipped to the program. I said, now I don't want to lead you on. I just want you to tell me whether or not they had to read these articles. My wife said, almost verbatim. So your favorite podcasts that have hundreds and multiple hundreds of thousands of subscribers, I'm their favorite podcast. Okay. So let's go here. So let's go back in here. It says, what's that? It's no way out. Real truth. I'm trying to get to yours, but it keeps jumping. What is this thing doing? Well, YouTube is tripping right now. Guys, I can't. I'm gonna wait for it to stop jumping, and then I'll go back to it. But I just want you to think about this. We are watching 2 civilizations. When we talk about worlds, we're actually talking about civilizations, okay? A Western civilization and a Eastern civilization. The Eastern civilization encompasses South, right? The North, the Middle, and the Far East. So we're watching right now in real time the fall of America and the collapse of Western domination. And I don't think you guys understand just how important what is going on is in the history of man. I don't think you've never seen a civilization as powerful as the United States find herself in a position that the United States has found herself in. We look at Greece, we look at Rome, we look at Babylon, we look at biblical Egypt, and we see great empires fall, right? We see them fall, and we look at what caused their fall. And if you look at the fall of America, and we look at the cause, every cause that you see in each one of those examples is amplified in the fall of America and the Western world. They're not only together, because some of them had their own traits and characteristics all to themselves, but now in the fall of America, the fall of the Western world, we see all of those traits together and amplified on a scale never heard before. Do you know, as Jim Rogers says, that the United States is the greatest debtor nation in the history of the world? Some of you, when you hear this, it just does not take in your heart, because you can't fathom it sometimes. But do you know what that is? The greatest debtor nation in the history of the world. And her debt burden is so great, listen to this, that if you put all of the GDPs of every country on the planet together and multiply it would not be enough to extract her from her debt crisis. Do you understand the significance of that? That means even if you want to stop the collapse, you couldn't. Financially, it is mathematically impossible. Do you understand that? They raised the global GDP, which I don't see how they continue to raise the global GDP when the debt burden of the globe continues to get worse. But hey, I'm just an average thinker. But let's give them some credit and say, okay, we're going to even add a little bit to what you say. And you say the global GDP is $110 trillion. We're going to put some spice on it. We're going to say 140 trillion. We're going to give you everything you need. $140 trillion. The United States in 2012, her debt, her acknowledged, unacknowledged debt was 222 trillion. That was the unacknowledged, acknowledged, or knowledge, unacknowledged debt of the United States back then. All economic barometers have deteriorated since then. Right? Think about that. And when I talked to Gregory Mannarino, and we talked about the derivative markets, and again, I'll bring this up to you because some of you heard it before from me, but some of you haven't. The derivative market was between $2 and $5 quadrillion. Quadrillion. Not trillions, not tens of trillions, not hundreds of trillions. Quadrillions. These are bets on bets on bets on debt. Now, you add that with the United States debt. Forget everybody else in the world, that's the United States debt. There is a mathematical impossibility to stop the economic collapse. It's not Rashid saying this, it's math saying this. And I don't care how much you add up 1 and 1, it'll never be 55. I don't care how much you put 7 and 5 together, it will never equal 3,000. It will always equal what it equals. Even if it's not to our liking, it will still equal what it equals, right? So if we use common sense, and then we look at the situation and situations that we're now facing, we can come to some sound and rational conclusions that may not be palatable to most, but at least if you acknowledge it, then maybe you can do something for the betterment of you. Listen, ignoring cancer is not going to make cancer go away. Ignoring cancer is not going to make it turn into lollipops and rainbows, right? And we know that cancer is a disease that eats from within. And once it metastasizes to its final stage, they call it terminal. not acknowledging the debt crisis, the cultural crisis, the economic crisis, the political crisis, and the military crisis that America and the Western world now faces will not yet make it go away. All it does is allows for this cancer to fester and metastasize towards the what? Terminal phase. And when you have reached the terminal phase, what does the doctor tell you? What does the medical staff tell you? We've done all we can do. We'll just try to make your last few days be as comfortable as we can, right? We're entering that stage right now with the U.S., the U.S. empire. We're entering that stage right now with the Western financial system, the Western political system, the Western cultural system. And when you don't conform to the lies, you become enemy number one. When you don't accept this agenda that they put out on you, that he is a she and we all are one, right? This is what he is a she and she is a he, right? And if you don't accept that, you are a fanatic. They turn the laws of God on their head. See, this is the final stage of empire. Go look at what happened to Rome. Look at what happened to Greece. Go look at what happened to Babylon. Go look at what happened in ancient Egypt, biblical times. Go look at what happened to these empires. But the problem with America is that those empires, in their time when they said the world, the known world, it didn't encompass every area of the globe. Today's time, America is in every continent. She's everywhere. So the collapse will be much more devastating. Do you understand? I don't think you understand. Let me get to something real quick. All right. Let's see. Hold on one second, everybody. Got to make sure that's right there. All right. Now I want you to look at something. I want to refresh your memory to something because we're talking about what's going on in Africa. We're going to talk about what's going on in Europe. Well, we've been talking about what's going on in Europe and America and what's going on all across the global south. It is imperative that you pay close attention to these things. And I know I've played this clip 100 times. It is something in the clip. My mom used to always tell me this. When a person says something over and over again, or when a person or a book has a phrase or a sentence or a chapter in it over and over again, they are trying to direct your attention to something that they feel is of the utmost importance, right? I want you to listen to this guy again because we're going to play him right now because this is from, I think, last year. We're going to play this clip again, and then we're going to go from there, and we're going to read some of the information that is right in front of us about the economic situation of America, the political situation of America, right? The political and economic situation of the West, and how it pertains to you and the livelihood of you and your loved ones, okay? But we got to look at the dire situation of American politics and American policies, all right? What I'm trying to show you, listen, you've got to go through the mud. You got to go to the fire. To get the diamond, you got to dig. It won't just pop up out the ground. You got to put in some type of effort, some type of energy, right? So please listen to this because it's giving you an insight of just how dire the situation for the American empire is economically, politically, geopolitically. And without an understanding of that, you can never secure the livelihoods of your families, okay? And we're going to soon have giveaways on here too, giving away silver coins and stuff here and there, all right? So, but I want you all to pay close attention. Remember, you got to hit the like button too, okay? Hit the like button and share it. Hit the like button and share, okay? This is the only way that we can beat the algorithm because for every 5 subscribers we get, they take 6 or 7. The only channel that goes in reverse. All right. But there's a reason for that. Because we are no BS, straight to the point. And we don't care if, well, we want you to like it, but we don't care if you dislike it. Because truth is not for everybody. But it's still our job nonetheless to get it out to you, okay? So I want you to listen to this as these people discuss the dire situation that America is in. Remember, this is about a year or two ago, okay? And think about how bad and how the economic barometers have deteriorated since this video. It's about 6 minutes. Pay close attention because everything in there is very important and pertaining to the collapse and fall of the American empire. Pay close attention.
Dr. Francisco,
if they allow it.
Just before the break, Clive made the point that you're trusting the medium rather than the person. When it comes to the United States, I don't trust the person or the medium. I'd be happy if I never bought another American thing or saw another American dollar because I don't like bullies. Isn't this partly the end of the era of the bully?
I think multipolarity is here. I think that's the key, and the dollar is dying. There is no question about it. Let me give you some figures that are quite important. The GDP of the United States is 24 trillion. The debt, the public debt is 30 trillion. The difference between the total gross domestic product and the debt is 6 trillion. 6 trillion is equivalent to the combined GDPs of the whole of the Latin American countries together, including Brazil. That gives you an idea of the problem. That's number one. There is a US debt clock, which you can find in the internet. I ran it before coming to the show. And I ran it for 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, the amount of debt that increased in the United States was 8 billion. Now, 8 billion is, if you have 3 of them, that is the GDP of Nicaragua. If you have 5 of them, that's the GDP of Bolivia. The United States have a very serious problem of infrastructure. Their productivity is low. The number of bridges in the United States that require urgent repair, not repair, urgent repair, is 65,000. The quality of the road, according to the American Society of Civil Engineers, they produce a report every year, 42% of the roads are mediocre or in need of repair. The electricity plants, airports, and so on. Everything is a complete mess. The United States doesn't have high-speed trains. It doesn't. Sorry to say it like this. Even Spain has them. So that gives you an idea of the problem. And the United States economy is growing at a rate of something between 2 and 1%. The Chinese economy, with all the problems, is growing at a rate of 7%. So that means in the next 10 years, arithmetically, the US economy is going to be 20% bigger, and the Chinese economy is going to be 70% bigger. Now, if you take what countries have done regarding this question of the dollar, possibly people do not know, but China and Japan are conducting their foreign trade in their currencies. Iran is conducting their business in no dollar. Russia and China, Iraq, and many other countries. But the recent decision by the Saudi Arabia to actually conduct the selling of their oil to China in yuan. Now, China buys 25% of the total output of Saudi Arabia. This is 30 billion. The United States purchases only 7%. So if you keep going down, you can see that there is already a multipolarity of initiatives. What we don't have is the international architecture, financially speaking, so that there is a system which is coherent, is international, it works, it has legal security that gives you legal confidence that if you enter into a transaction in that system, you know, whatever it is going to be respected. That has to happen, but it's beginning to take place already. So the United States is in a real trouble, and it doesn't have any possibility. I just looked at the budget that Joe Biden presented to Congress for 2023. It's a very long document. It has three key components. Number one, domestic security. It's going to give to the police domestically huge amount of resources. The organization Black Lives Matter said, this is not what we want. You know what happened when they have resources. And basically, Biden is trying to get votes from the right by doing this. That's number one. Number two is international security. He increased the budget, the military budget, to $773 billion, which is $30 billion more than in the previous administration. And surprisingly, he's going to apply a tax of 20% on the fortunes of 100 million upwards, which is going to produce 360 billion, and it's going to reduce the budget deficit and the deficit of the United States by 1 trillion in 10 years. So it's totally useless. And in order for this budget to be passed, he needs to win it in the House, in Congress. He's got a majority.
Control over which he may well lose in November.
Certainly, but at the moment, if we were to propose it, he will pass it in the House, but he will not be able to pass it through Congress because there is 50-50. And Democrat right-wing, Joe Manchin, already said he's not going to support it. So it's already, not only is useless as a proposal to recover the economy, but it's already dead before it begins. So that gives you an idea of the problems that they have. So the issue, strategically, from their point of view, is this. Do they continue waging war against everybody else? And who else is there to wage war? The calculation, it seems to me, was if we are able to bully Russia and make them accept our way, and then later on we'll continue with that until, we produce something equivalent to regime change, isolating China thereby, and therefore the next move is to attack China. And this one hasn't worked. The next one is certainly not going to work. So the United States is desperate because he's facing a very serious challenge. Number one, energy and resources from Russia to Europe, which really needs them, and the Belt and Road Initiative by China, which is, at the moment, is in the region of $5 trillion. So therefore, facing with this huge, very attractive embrace from these two nations that have huge resources, one natural resource, the other one technology, markets, money, and credit, and investment, infrastructure, is very difficult to say no. So the only possibility for them is war, war, war.
The possibility for America, and in turn Britain, and in turn NATO, is war, war, war. There's a key word he used in there. He said America is desperate. You understand? No way out. I read while this was on, I read that you said you may not be able to join us tomorrow morning because it's way too early for you. I think you're in the Pacific. But you'll catch the replay. Shout out to you in advance. And also something that you put up there, I'm going to highlight in just a second. But let me get to this. It says the word desperate because he emphasized, he said America is desperate. Remember what I told you, how they keep flinging stuff up against the wall to try to see if anything will stick? Because once you've ruled so long and you've been able to exert authority and power and influence without even a second thought, and now that is no longer working, you're desperate and you're trying any and everything to cement your rule and also to keep the demise of the empire from happening. So you're trying everything, anything that comes to mind. That's why the policies are so irrational. That's why the leadership is so irrational and inept, because they cannot come together with soundness of mind because they have unsound mind. And though they did not like to retain God in their consciousness, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do things which were unseemly. Right? You can't have sound judgment if your mind is unsound, if you promote unsound policies, because the policies is a reflection of thinking, and thinking grows out of the mind, right? Is that not right? Listen to what the word desperate means. It says it's an adjective, and it means feeling, showing, or involving a hopeless sense that a situation is so bad as to be impossible to deal with, right? It says similar, despairing, hopeless, anguished, distressed, in despair. Listen to this part right here because this is very important. Suicidal. Let me read that again. The guy said that America is desperate. She has a choice. Well, if I do this, then it all collapses. But if I continue to wage war, things are that much worse, right? He said she's become desperate. And we know that the word is an adjective, and we're going to read this again to get a point across. That goes back to the policies initiatives I keep telling you, and the merry-go-round chairs. They're playing musical chairs with people in the defense industry. I call it the offense industry because there's nothing defensive about it. And the politicians, the musical chairs of how people continue to go out. The CIA come in and become a White House spokesman, or become a White House national security advisor, or this person becomes this. The musical chairs. There's unsoundness and irrational. They're irrational up here. There's a Bible quote that I just quoted to you all. Though they did not like to retain God in their consciousness, God gave them over to a reprobate mind to do those things which are not seemly, right? So you can't have sound judgment if you have no sound mind. You can't have sound thought if your mind is in disarray. So we see the policies initiatives have caused the American empire to be in total disarray, which causes desperation, as he said. Now let's read it again. Desperate. Adjective. Feeling, showing, or involving a hopeless sense that a situation is so bad as to be impossible to deal with. Similar. Despairing. Hopeless. Anguished. Distressed. In despair. And here's the kicker. Suicidal. There's no way on earth that you cannot say that these people are not suicidal. And I'm going to prove my point to you all. If it only takes $20 billion to eradicate homelessness, you can't find that for homelessness. Remember that saying, charity starts at home, then spreads abroad. You can't find $20 billion to eradicate homelessness in America. But you can find all of this money through emergency appropriations that add up to 130 to $200 billion in all for a war in Ukraine that you claim to be an innocent bystander of. At home, they're suffering. Abroad, you're helping the people to suffer through funding. You're defunding the people at home who can come out of suffering if you fund them, but you're funding war overseas to cause suffering. Either or, there's suffering involved because of your policy. Unsound policies. Suicidal. Okay, let's go to something. Because remember the last word in here is suicidal. All right. According to the dictionary, suicidal is also an adjective. And it means deeply unhappy or depressed and likely to commit suicide. Right? Now, let us see if this is the case. America continues to find trillions of dollars each year for the military. And now, listen, this is the crazy thing about this, because I bring this point up all the time. Nobody brings this point up. Okay? For the last 20 or 30 years, all we've heard from the military establishment and from the political establishment is that America is decades ahead of everybody else militarily. And yet each year, they justify increasing funding for the military that is supposedly decades ahead of everybody else. You make that make sense? Now, by increasing funding of the military that is, quote unquote, decades ahead of everybody else, it causes social programs to lapse. It causes educational programs to lapse. It causes disarray within American society, right? Now, that is putting a bullet in the chamber. Now, here's another bullet. You're funding all of these think tanks. None of these think tanks' budgets get cut. Now, I want you to understand that these think tanks get funding from the government. They don't get cut. Head Start does. No debt relief for students. The future stewards of the minds of the future generations. Teachers, are forced to live off handouts and food aid and stipends. I want you to think about this. But a basketball player can get a $500 million contract when a teacher has to live off food aid. Do you understand the seriousness of this? Do you not know that education is what civilizes us? The proper education civilizes and exemplifies a society. And when you have a brilliant education system on top of brilliant educators, guess what they do? They nurture brilliant minds that produce brilliant and advanced thought that promotes advancement of society and civilization. When you defund that, guess what you're doing? You're putting thermite to the base of your republic and your empire. So guess what America has done? Not only did she put a bullet in the chamber over here, she put thermite to the base of her own republic by defunding education, Head Start, creative programs, and saddling her future generations with unpayable student debt. That's not suicidal as a republic. I'm asking you. That's not suicidal. So we see where there's desperation, it breeds the thought of suicide. And this is America. She says on one hand, we can't beat China in her near abroad. We can't beat China. But if we don't hurry up, we'll never beat China. What? We can't beat China in her near abroad. Every war game shows that we've lost, and we've lost quicker. And the only time that we have even come close to not losing quicker, we didn't win it. We didn't win in that one. But the only time that we didn't lose as quick as we lost the other time is when we employed futuristic weapons on the battlefield, which we don't have, and we're not even in the process of acquiring. So, in essence, what they're telling you is that the United States is playing games, imaginary games. And only when they can come up with some creative futuristic weapon that's not even in the R&D stage do they defeat China. Now, here's something, because all this is together. So, on the one hand, you've tried 20 to 30. They told us 20. But we know it's more than that. War games where China beats you and beats the brakes off you. Okay? But yet you're stoking tensions with China. And you're saying that you're going to up the supply of armaments to the Chinese province of Chinese Taipei or Taiwan, which will stoke a war. And China's your largest investor. And China's your largest trade partner. And China's your largest infrastructure development. And China is the largest importer from you. And China's the largest exporter to you. I'm not making this stuff up. It would make you cry if you sat down and thought about the stupidity of the so-called learned ones who have all of these political degrees from these advanced colleges and universities. So you're going to stoke a war that you can't win with China in hopes that you may win with some futuristic weapon that you don't have, even though it'll be a detriment to your people at home and your military abroad. That's not suicidal. Well, let's go a little further with that. We know that Barack Obama, and man, I don't like talking about that guy there because I think he was the most detrimental president to Black America on the planet. Seriously, his policies prove it. Forget this word. Forget this spinning the basketball on the finger. Forget the hip talk. Look at the policies and the policy initiatives. Okay. Now, Obama stated that Russia always has escalatory dominance in Ukraine and the former Soviet republics. That gets left out. and the former Soviet republics. Now look at this. We have Latvia. We have Estonia, right? We have other former Soviet republics that are now part of NATO. Okay? Now we look at Ukraine. Well, Russia showed that they had escalatory dominance when it beat the brakes off Israel, the United States, and NATO in Georgia, a former Soviet republic. Most people don't understand that when Russia beat them, they beat NATO. It was an Israeli officer advising the Georgian Republic's military. It was Israel, the United States, and NATO embedded with them. It was Israel, the United States, and NATO supplying the arms. And then when Russia beat the brakes off of them, it was the United States and NATO that was trying to broker a deal behind closed doors to save face when Russia beat the brakes off of Georgia for killing some Russian peacekeepers. All right, escalatory dominance. Then we go over to Ukraine, escalatory dominance. And yet the United States continue to flood Ukraine with weapons, flood Ukraine with money that disappears, in debt, put the United States taxpayers further in debt on a war that they didn't choose to prosecute or persecute, just so the politicians can save face and push the world closer to thermonuclear war because they have this image to uphold. If that is not suicidal and insanity, tell me what is. Huh? At home, the people are suffering. Mortgages are lapsing. Rent is behind. Car payments are lapsing. People have to choose between paying rent or paying their car note or in their car insurance or the house insurance. Either way, you're in trouble. Have to choose between getting medicine or getting food or paying your light bill. But you can find aid for war, and a war that you can't win because you have acknowledged that Russia has escalatory dominance. If that is not insanity, tell me what is. Because any person on the street that had policies like that, they would be taken off the street or would not be allowed to run a company or be a leader or be a manager of anybody. So why should we allow them to do it if they're showing ineptitude? Huh? Let's go to, I see the chat. Hold on one second. I don't know what's going on over here. Hold on one second. YouTube is tripping over here, I guess. All right, here we are. Medi. Oh, we got Medi in the building. Let me highlight Medi's comment. That's a channel member. I gotta highlight that. I gotta highlight this. Hold on, everybody. ISW reported in 2018 that NATO and Ukraine both had little chance of beating Russian ground forces in the Baltics. That's what I'm saying. The logistics advantage alone, Russia has been right next door. That's right, being right next door. This is what I'm saying. The United States, I want you to understand something. Say, for instance, war broke out in Europe. For those of you who don't know, and I'm not saying that I'm a strategist or a geopolitician or anything. I'm just saying common sense, okay? Just imagine war breaks out across Europe. And the way it keeps going, it may soon. But check this out. America has to ship troops, weapons, tanks, because the ones she have there will not be enough to even halt a Russian advance. As a matter of fact, you can Google this, put this into Google and Google this, Bing it, Yahoo it, DuckDuckGo it, or whatever you want to do. NATO says Russia, or some kind of wording like this, Russia overcomes or defeats NATO forces in Europe in 72 hours. This was a report that came out of NATO, that Russia overran NATO positions in 72 hours. And listen to this. And the report, here it is right here. And the report came out prior to the Ukrainian war. So now we see that Russia is dominating NATO and Ukraine on the Ukrainian battlefield. We got to take those estimates down to roughly 24 or 48 hours instead of 72 hours, right? Now, think about this. America has to ship more troops, more weapons, more tanks, more missiles to the European theater if war breaks out on the continent. Now, Russia has a pretty good Navy. It's not as big as the United States, but besides, it's not everything. Russia can interdict some of those shippings by sinking them with the weapons on it, and God forbid, the ships with troops on it. They can interdict the deployment of troops in cargo planes by shooting them down. I'm just saying, listen, I am not an advocate of war. What I'm trying to do is give you all of the information that you need so that you can prevent the war, right? So that you can prevent this and force the military in the United States to accept the reality of the time. But that won't happen. She's got to be beat. A bully has to be hit. That's the only way they pause, stop, or go and retreat. Words won't do it. So listen, Mary says, let's go down. It says, NATO is just a nuclear weapons projection racket for the United States. Bam! Look at this. NATO is just a nuclear weapons projection racket for the United States. We either use nukes or give up. There is no middle ground. And let me highlight one more. It says, Mehdi says, most of the weapons NATO needs are all in the United States. Russia can just sink the transport. Russia can just sink the transports before they make European ports. That's what I've been saying. This is what I'm saying. Do the leaders think about this? Do the strategicians strategize about this? Because it seems that they are lacking up here. But again, that goes back to old biblical saying, because they did not like to retain God in their consciousness. See, they spoke him, but the action showed us differently. You can't say that you're God-fearing and going around murdering everybody. You can't say you're God-fearing and you're causing wars just for the sake of material gain. You can't say that you are a follower of Christ or a follower of Muhammad and go and blowing somebody up or occupying nations or ignoring the will of the people of those nations or sanctioning those nations because you don't like their leaders, so you want to force the people to rise up because they no longer have access to the money markets or to food. That's not Christ-like. That's not Muhammad-like. That's Satan-like. Oh, man. I'm telling you. How in the hell can you say you're a follower of Christ and you out there bumming the hell out of almost the total population of the planet Earth? If they don't agree with you, you sanction them. You take the opportunity for these people to make a living. And you crush it because it's within your power to do so. Man, I tell you what. Let me highlight this again. This is just not right. And that's why these worlds are colliding. A more fair, more just world is coming in and it's merging in on the old world, which is crashing out and burning. So war is inevitable. War is inevitable because one side that is ruled is not going to just get up and get off the horse and allow you to take the horse and ride it. You're going to have to knock that person off the horse and take the horse. Worlds collide. Mehdi says Western doctrine is completely messed up. Our military is now too light, underarmed, and not designed for combat in Europe. The vehicles are just too big, can target them for miles, ex-tank commander. Yes. But this is the thinking of people who have deluded themselves. See, they've been fighting these wars of aggression against less powerful, less armed people, and they thought that this was the way to go. Because all they thought about is this. The Soviet Union has collapsed. Our main opponent has collapsed. Now, the world is ours. And all of the spoils are ours. So now all we have to do is contend with these people here who are lightly armed or armed with old weapons. We can occupy all of the strategic waterways. We can occupy all of the shipping routes, all of the land routes that are strategic, and then we can place our military close to all of the minerally rich areas of the globe. And if we can't do it all at one time, then we can strong arm our brothers in Europe who would love to be back over their former colonies. And so while they did that, they bankrupted the Western world. They were not thinking about, because they believed that they would be in power forever, and therefore through the barrel of the gun I can force everybody to accept the dollar, meaning that I can continue to print, continue to export inflation, and continue to dominate each and every sphere of man. And all while I'm doing it, I'm doing it in the name of Jesus. And guess what happens? God is not cheap. You're not going to masquerade under the name of one of his servants and think you're going to get away with this fella. That ain't how things go. God is not cheap. And so what we're watching is the blowback effect of hubris, intransigence, malfeasance of government, ineptitude of government leaders, racism, and greed. That's what we're watching right now. Yes. So let me put something up. Medi. What did he say right here? Right on. Preach. You cannot force democracy on anyone. The action itself means you are anti-democracy. Well, check this out, Medi, and those of you who are listening. I gave a similar analogy about this. Now, everybody who is viewing, say that you all are in need of money, right? And we're all in the same city on the same block. And I pull up in a Brinks truck that says, the Red Pill Diaries Brinks truck, brought to you by Rashid. And I open up the back of the Brinks truck and I start throwing out racks of $100 bills, maybe 10,000 in each rack, right? To each one of you that are in need of mortgage payments, rent, power bill payments, food, car note payments, insurance payments, right? Will I have to get my gun out to force you to take the $100 bills, the $10,000 bill, the $100,000 in these stacks? Will I have to get a gun out to force you to take that? I'm asking. No, right? Because why? Because common sense tells me that you're providing me with a service or with something that I need that is for my livelihood and for my benefit, right? Now, if I pull up to you and say, listen, and I pull up with guns and I have a whole bunch of people and say, listen, I know everybody's in debt. I need you to sign this paper. Don't explain anything. Just sign this paper or we're going to shoot you. I'm telling you, we're going to benefit you. And I tell you, that's democracy, right? What would you think? Which one would you rather have? For me to pull up with guns and demand that you sign paper and turn over all of your sovereignty, all of your independence, and all of your financial wealth and material in your house or whatever. And I promise you a better way of life. Now, while I'm promising you this, you see my partner over there kicking your wife in the face. You see my other partner over there dragging your children out the back door, putting them in boxes. Or would you rather have it where Rashid pulls up in the Red Pill Diaries truck, opens the back of the Brinks truck, and start talking to you on an even level and saying, I know that you've been in trouble. I ask of you nothing. But I do want to do my civic duty as a human and as a person and as a believer in God. I have all of this excess money. You know that my net worth is $20 billion. This truck is filled with $100 million. Can I please hand this out to each and every one of you? Which one would you accept? So they want you to believe that democracy comes through the barrel of the gun. But listen, here's the kicker. It is only good democracy if I bring it through the barrel of a gun. But if Burkina Faso Mali, and Niger overturned centuries of colonialism through a military coup. Mind you, the military coup is to remove the Western imposed, Western leaning stooge out of power that is allowing them to fleece the people. They want you to believe that that's not democracy when the military is hearing the will of the people. I thought democracy was the will of the people. It doesn't have to be in the suit. It's hearing and acting upon the will of the people, right? According to them. So just earlier today, I saw a clip of the Burkina Faso captain who led the military coup against the leadership, and he said, and he was addressing the youth of Burkina Faso, and he says, and I'm paraphrasing, we are going to take back our gold. We're going to take back our resources. We're going to take back our mineral riches and give it to the people who deserve it. That's what he was saying to the people. Is that not democracy? But according to the West, democracy is only democracy when the West benefits from you suffering. That's democracy. Man, get the hell out of here with that foolishness. Stop it. We're not ignorant. We're not fools. Right? Let's see right here. One more up here. Medi says, no way out, you nailed it. What did no way out say? All right, here we go. Let me put no way out up there. Everywhere the U.S. exported democracy, failed states left behind, ready for exploitation of their resources. Absolutely 100 million% right. You nailed it. That is right. We see that. I mean, what more can you say? What more can you say? Listen, I've had your attention for this long. Please hit the like button. Please hit the like button. I'm about to go and handle a little business. Let me tell you something. Please hit the like button, share, check your subscription because you may be unsubscribed. Check your bell icon because they may have taken it off so you'll get the notifications. Please, I ask this of you all. You know, I rarely ask for donations. If you can, you will. But I will ask you this: join the channel, join the Patreon. There'll be Patreon videos dropping this week, and membership videos. I had to talk to a platform, quote unquote, I won't say, and ask them why I was having problem uploading new content for my channel members. All right. So for the channel members, hint, hint, I was talking to a platform that was not allowing me to upload new content. That's why you only got one video this past few days, okay? Now, please invite at least 3 people to join the channel, okay? And 3 likes. Please do that. Let me see something. Something just came up. Medi says, no way out. Thanks for that great information. I know what he's talking about down there. I see it. Yeah, thanks. Also, tell others of us, share the video. If you have any ideas, if you have any people that you want to see, you can email me at hiram1555@yahoo.com. And if you put subject matter, Red Pill Diaries subject matter up there, and I'll be able to see some of the stuff that you may want to talk about and some of the people that you may want on the show. I'm still working on a few people, on the show. You see, I didn't have any live shows at the beginning of the week because I was working on getting the Scott Ritter show this week. Okay, behind the scenes, I'm working everybody, trying to get you guys top content, top guests, and everything like this. And I thank you for your time. In closing, I'd like to say this to you, as I often say. Time, your time, is not a renewable resource. So I want to thank you for spending your time with me. That's what it's called, spending time. That means that you're using your time and trying to get an equal or greater value for your time. And I hope our discussions, our conversations, and this show can either give you equal or greater amounts of what you spent with me. Okay, your time. I'm humbled that you would give me a minute. I'm humbled that you would give me 10 minutes to an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours. I'm really humbled. I'd like to thank each and every one of you for joining me. Know that I love you if you love truth, right? But know that the true and living God will always love you better. Until we next speak again, stay strong, stay true, but above all things, stay righteous. Because remember, righteousness is the only thing that's going to get us out of here, especially in this mad, sick world. I love you all. Hey, mama, your baby boy loves you more.